This year's NFL draft, you're going to see a lot of the draft buzz, the draft type at the running back position revolving around two big school guys, Ezekiel Elliott out of Ohio State, Derrick Henry out of Alabama. And part of it's because of the programs they play for. Part of it is based off of the production that they put forth throughout their college careers. There's a lot of buzz for a reason. But there are other good running back prospects in this year's 2016 NFL draft class. And frankly, I think the best one that far too few people talk about and far too people hype up is CJ Prosise out of Notre Dame. I get all the buzz about Ezekiel and Elliott, and I see why people are excited about Derrick Henry. But CJ Prosise had a really, really good year for Notre Dame. And when you look at his physical package and his skill set and his tools, to me, he has a lot of the traits that suggest that he could be a three-down back at the NFL level. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds, played at a big program like Notre Dame, a redshirt junior who really came into his own this year, finally found his position. He was recruited to Notre Dame as a top flight defensive back. Then he converted to wide receiver before settling in this year as a running back. And frankly, what's strange about it is the fact he wasn't even starting off the year as a starting running back. You had injuries and other things that led to Prosise getting his opportunity. But man, when he got his opportunity at running back this year, he made the most of it. And he showed me a lot this year in his one primary season as a running back for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. At 6 foot, 220 pounds, he's bigger than you think, but he's got quickness and he's got plenty of speed. This is a guy that is very elusive and has really good lateral agility, a guy that can make you miss in the open field, that can make big plays that aren't originally there, a guy that when you get the ball in his hands can be a home run threat potentially every single time. I mean, this guy has good quickness, really good speed, and like I said, has the athleticism and the ability, better than Ezekiel Elliott or especially Derrick Henry in this draft, to be able to make defenders miss in the open field. He's got some zuzu to him. He's got some juke to him. He's got some side-to-side to him. He's got some athleticism and some natural kind of make-you-miss ability that those other guys just don't have. And it's nice to have those type of playmakers when you're looking for running backs at the NFL level. Sometimes big plays aren't going to be there. They have to be made, and you need playmakers to make those big plays. And based off of what I saw at times out of CJ Prosise at Notre Dame in 2015, it leads me to believe that he could be that type of big-time playmaker potentially at the NFL level. For a guy with not a lot of experience as a running back, I thought he demonstrated to me solid vision to be able to see where he needs to go within the offense. I thought he demonstrated really good patience for a guy that's that quick, that elusive, and that fast. You would think that there would always be that tendency to want to kick everything outside and not wait for things to open up. But he showed some good patience to me as a between the tackles runner in 2015. And I was impressed with that because I'm like, for a guy that's this raw, at this point in time, you'd be expecting him to coast by on athletic ability alone. And if he's just coasting by on athletic ability alone, he's got a lot of it. He did more than that, and he was more of a runner than that. And I was really impressed with the guy because at first, when I started paying attention to CJ Prosise and watching Notre Dame games this year, I didn't think he was that big. I mean, I knew what he was listed at, but I didn't think he was that big. But as the year went along, it dawned on me that this guy is legitimately 5'11 and a half, 6 foot, 220 pounds or so. And he runs like it at times. He demonstrates some really good effort at finishing runs. I mean, this is a guy that I saw make some big runs out of nothing. This is a guy that I saw a lot be able to turn a 1 yard run into a 3 yard run, a 3 yard run into a 5 or 6 yard run. I like that ability to finish runs, to run hard, run tough, and I think Prosise does that. And then obviously with the converted wide receiver, he's going to have receiving skills. So he's going to come into the NFL as a ready-made pass catcher. So based off of the athleticism that he has and based off of those receiving skills, there's some potential there to be a three-down starting running back at the NFL level. In that 1 year as a running back, he showed me a lot. But it's only 1 year. It's a small sample, and I do have some questions about him, obviously, heading to the NFL level. You look at his lack of experience at running back. 1 year as a primary ball carrier, 1 year in that Notre Dame offense. And you wonder, is it a bit of a one-year wonder? Is he going to be a product of just the system that he played at Notre Dame? Is he going to be somebody like Theo Riddick who comes to the NFL and is primarily a pass catcher and back only and doesn't run the ball? That lack of experience at running back overall. And you could see that rawness in his game at times. But I thought he played better than I would have expected for a guy really in his first full year as a running back. But he's definitely lacking in some experience. As you would imagine, he's a guy that could use some work in pass protection. Going from wide receiver to running back, you wouldn't expect pass protection to be a great strength of his game. That's not to say he doesn't put forth effort as a blocker. I think he actually puts forth solid effort as a blocker. The issue more so is just that he hasn't had a lot of experience at it. And at times he maybe struggles to recognize where the blitz is coming from or where his responsibility is, and his technique could get some work. He shows effort, and effort is important. And he should be able to work at it and get better at the NFL level, especially if he wants to be a three-down back and he wants to be on the field at third-down situations. He needs to become better as a pass protector because he's got some work to do there. In terms of as a runner, I look at his power running. He doesn't run through a lot of tackles, between the tackles. He's not a great power runner. Like I say, he does well to finish runs, and he does a good job of running tough and putting forth effort, but he's not a guy that's going to bowl you over. He's not going to be a Derrick Henry type or even an Ezekiel Elliott type. He's not a guy that I think is going to thrive in a power running game. So ultimately, it could make him kind of scheme dependent. When you look at Notre Dame, they're running primarily out of the spread. A lot of shotgun, single back, read option type of plays. That might be the type of system that fits CJ Prosise best. I think he could potentially work in a one-cut zone blocking type of scheme as well, but that could be his primary fit. That might be the only scheme that is really suited for him at the NFL level, and that could limit his opportunities and limit his fits with teams. In terms of an NFL comparison, I've seen some different ones for him. Some of them I like, some of them not so much. Who I think of going back to his days as a prospect coming out of East Carolina heading into the 2008 NFL draft is Chris Johnson. Here was a guy that was a converted wide receiver, showed some flashes, especially in his last game in college in the bowl game. I think he ran for like 230, 240 yards. I remember watching that game, and that's when I first really paid attention to Chris Johnson. I said, holy shit, this guy could be a first-round pick as a running back. He could be a damn good one. But you had a lot of people then talking about how he's a better prospect as a wide receiver, and is he going to be able to be an every-down running back? And they underestimated those receiving skills. They didn't look at the fact that he was a big play threat potentially every time he touched the football. And you look at the early stages of Chris Johnson's career at the NFL level. I mean, this is a guy, CJ2K. He had a 2,000-yard season. This is a guy who was notorious for busting off 60, 70, 80-yard touchdown runs or touchdown receptions where he'd catch it 5 yards down the field and take it to the house. CJ Prosise as a prospect coming out of Notre Dame reminds me a lot of Chris Johnson coming out of East Carolina. Now, granted, he doesn't quite have Chris Johnson's world-class speed that he had coming out of East Carolina. But CJ Prosise has plenty of quickness and more than enough speed. He just didn't have that Chris Johnson level. But a lot of the ways that they play, where it's more about elusiveness and the ability to hit quickly and the ability to utilize their speed and shiftiness and elusiveness over power, yeah, when I see CJ Prosise, he reminds me a lot of Chris Johnson. And as a result, when I look at him overall as a prospect, similar to Chris Johnson back in 2008, I think he's a very underrated running back prospect. A lot of people want to fit into these traditional definitions of what a three-down bell cow NFL running back is, and they're thinking back about it like it's the 1960s or goddamn 70s, and it's just not the case anymore. CJ Prosise is, as much as anybody in this draft, the modern prototype of a three-down running back at the NFL level. Sure, he doesn't quite have the power that you would love of an Adrian Peterson or a Todd Gurley, but he could do a lot of things. He's got the skills to be on the field for all three downs. He could be as good of a weapon out of the backfield as a pass catcher as he is out of a runner. This is a guy with those three-down skills that fits that mold of a modern three-down NFL running back, and that's what I think he is. If he had more than 1 year under him, if he was playing at Alabama or Ohio State, you best believe everybody would be licking his chotum. And yes, that's the place between his ass and his scrotum. They'd be talking about how big of a prospect he is. I can't believe throughout the draft process during the college football regular season that this guy wasn't talked about more than he has been, because he should have been. And I promise you that NFL front offices, if they know what the hell they're doing, are paying attention to this guy, and they've got him a lot higher on their boards than you think. For my money, CJ Prosise is the number 2 running back over Derrick Henry, yes, in the 2016 NFL draft, because I think CJ Prosise comes in more NFL ready as a 3-down back, even though Derrick Henry might have more initial impact as a between the tackles, first and second down runner. CJ Prosise has more overall ability, more athleticism, more big play capabilities, and I think, again, fits the modern mold of an NFL running back better than Derrick Henry does as a bell cow type of guy. Even though you think of bell cow as just being a between the tackles runner, it's more than just that in today's game. That's not a slight on Derrick Henry. As I talked about in my scouting report of him, I think he's still a very good prospect. I just think CJ Prosise is better. And to me, I think his grade, his range should be somewhere between the late first round to early to no later than mid portion of round number 2. Now, I look at the Carolina Panthers sitting there with their late first round pick. Without a ton of team needs, a guy like CJ Prosise, I would gamble on that athleticism. I would gamble on that upside, knowing that Jonathan Stewart is getting close to his age 30 season. It might be time to prepare for the future at that position. Long term to help protect Cam Newton. A guy like Prosise makes a lot of sense for them. He might make a lot of sense for Denver in their scheme as well, especially if they're ready to move on from Ronnie Hillman early on in round 2. I think CJ Prosise would be the perfect, ideal running back, not named Ezekiel Elliott in this draft, to put next to Marcus Mariota in that Tennessee Titans backfield. I think he would be a tremendous fit there. And I think it would be an incredible shock to me if the Tennessee Titans didn't strongly consider taking him there or even trading back up into the tail end portion of round 1 to be able to lock him into a first-round pick contract to get him an extra year. In terms of CJ Prosise, like I said, I'd be stunned if he lasted past the middle portion of round 2. There may be some teams that view him as a pass catcher only. And if they view him as a pass catcher only, then you should question the intelligence of those front offices because to me, they clearly don't know what the hell they're talking about. I think he's a better runner than he's given credit for. And again, he's only been doing it for a year. Imagine how much better he could be at it potentially 2 or 3 years down the road. CJ Prosise's upside is as big, if not bigger, than any running back in the 2016 NFL Draft. He's not quite as polished of an all-around player as Ezekiel Elliott is at this point in time. But Prosise could end up being, down the road, a better NFL player. Yeah, I said it. And that's why for now, I think he's better than Derrick Henry, and I've got Prosise rated as my number 2 running back in this year's draft class.